The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. It's Mark Thompson. Welcome to today's webinar. I am super excited to have you guys on. It is 2 o'clock. It is that time. If you wouldn't mind, just to make sure that you guys can hear me, let's do a quick sound check. You can see the screen okay. Just give me a quick yes in the chat panel there that you can hear me. You can see the screen. It says webinar is starting shortly. Stay tuned to get something to take notes with. So feel free to chime in and say hi, where you guys are calling in from. Love to have you guys participate. And we'll get started in just a few minutes. And like I said, take notes, guys. This is a very special webinar. My special guest, who I'm going to bring on in just a second, he is the foremost, he's the sought out expert when it comes to webinars. And he is what I consider to be the guru to the gurus when it comes to webinars. Whenever we create a new webinar that we really want to, be our staple webinar for that year, I bring this guy in and consult with him because he knows exactly what he is talking about. And he has generated over $100 million in webinars, which is kind of crazy, right? So, okay, it looks like you guys can hear me. You guys are coming on. Solomon says yes. Anthony says yes. Yes, see and hear you. Hi, Dave says, I can hear you very well. Awesome. Okay, great. So like I said, today, guys, we're going to be talking all about webinars. We have the best person that I could possibly think of to bring in. His name is Jason Fladlien, and he's going to be showing you guys how to create webinars. And I can tell you this from personal experience. We've created tons of webinars. We've done millions of dollars personally through our own webinars, and having just one webinar can completely change the landscape of your business. It is just kind of crazy to think that you could generate thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in just a few hours, right? I remember the very first six-figure webinar we did in about 90 minutes, and my jaw just dropped because I'm like, oh my God, look at how powerful webinars can be and what it can do for your business, right? For your lifestyle. It can help to, anything you want. Go on a trip, reinvest into your business, hire great talent around you. I mean, there's the sky's the limit. And so I'm super excited to have Jason on this call. We had him one other time, I believe it was about a year ago or a year and a half ago. So it doesn't happen very often. So consider yourselves very lucky. Make sure that you guys are taking notes. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if Jason's on here. We'll do a quick sound check and make sure we're good to go. So Jason, are you with me?
Yo, 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 hello, hello, hello.
Awesome. Can everybody hear Jason before we get started? Just give me a quick yes, I can. Still have a bunch of people coming on. And I know people are going to ask, are we going to have a replay? I don't know. GoToWebinar has been hit or miss. So make sure that you guys stay on till the very end. Be attentive. Ask your questions. Jason, like I said, it's pretty astounding that you've done $100 million in webinar sales, and that just blows my mind. So thank you so much, Jason, for coming on. It looks like you guys can hear Jason okay. And I guess with that said, I'm going to go ahead and sit back. I'm going to be taking notes, and the floor is yours, Jason.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone here today, because what we're going to do today is invest time with each other, and hopefully we'll all be better off as a result of that. My name is, in fact, Jason Fladlien, and I'm going to talk to you about how today kind of came to be, because I never was the person who thought I would teach people how to do webinars. Now, I've done webinars, as Mark says, and it's hard for me to even believe $100 million later, the powerful effectiveness of webinars. But I always like to do them. And only recently have I felt forced and compelled to be in the spotlight teaching others how to do this as well, because this is an unpopular topic. Everybody wants push button, magic, shiny object solutions that don't work. I hate to break it to you, but they don't work. And when those people would instead just invest a little time into really genuinely authentic, effective, value-based type of skill sets, it's amazing what the world can do for you. So this is how I was kind of forced to come out here and teach this. I joined a networking group called Genius Network for $25,000. At the point in time, it was the biggest expense I'd ever made in my business. But is it an expense? Well, you could easily argue it's an investment, because it's not what it cost you, it's what you get in return for where you put your money, right? And I like to be an overachiever. I like to provide and give value wherever I can. So when I signed up for this thing, it was March in 2014, just a little over 4 years ago. Hard to believe, but I show up in nice and sunny Tempe, Arizona, and I decided, because they asked me if I wanted to give a 10-minute talk, that I would give a 10-minute talk. And in this 10-minute talk, I broke down how we used webinars to set the promotional record. Rapid Crush is my company, by the way, on webinars. So we used a webinar to sell this product here, which is, as an affiliate, the single greatest affiliate promotion in the history of internet marketing, which is unbelievable for me, being a small town Iowa boy. I grew up in a little town called Muscatine, Iowa, and I started my business just shy of 10 years ago, just a decade in this business. And we actually exceeded, by the time the car closed here, $10 million in sales using webinars. So I did this 10-minute talk where I explained the ins and outs of how we made something like that happen. And the result was some really big, very powerful, very influential people who were as equally clueless on how to do webinars as somebody just starting fresh and new in this business came up to me and says, how do I do that? How do I do that? And again, I'm a very giving guy. As I think you'll hopefully see, if I do my best here today on this webinar, I like to give and help where I can. So I said, hey, reach out, and when you get a chance, we'll talk, and I'll see if I can help you use webinars better in your business. Now, as Mark mentioned earlier, I have consulted with Mark on how to do webinars to help him more successfully use webinars. And I am now the kind of go-to guy, because people like Garrett Gunderson, who's a New York Times bestseller, came up to me, and he was introducing me to a celebrity, a famous person, believe it or not. Like, I actually hang out with celebrities these days. That's crazy too. It's what one good webinar can do for you. The doors it can open for you is astounding. But he says this, he says, Jason Fladman is the best in the world at webinars. He's the only person that doesn't work for our firm that we have promoted in the last 3 years, and he absolutely crushed it. He is brilliant. You should know him. Key point, because people say to me, Jason, how do you get people to come to your webinars? And the answer is, you don't. You really don't have to. If you get really good at webinars, you will never have to want for traffic ever again, because other people will give you their traffic, because you'll be able to make them more money with it than they can make on their own. And another case in point, so another person who saw this 10-minute talk that I gave on how we use webinars to sell $10 million in product was a guy named John Carter. And John he says this, last year I was traveling with my family. I had to pass on a last-minute JV opportunity. Jason hit me up on Skype and asked if he could do the webinar for me, since I would have to pass. I thought, why not? When I got back from Italy, we had 1.5 million in sales in a Tesla in the driveway. Isn't that incredible? Now, I have no connection to John's audience. I am not even in the industry that John comes from. He teaches people how to do options trading. But because of my ability to use webinars to effectively help people say yes to something that's going to benefit them, I get opportunities like this all the time. And I'm here to tell you today, you can as well. Because not even that webinars are that hard, as you're going to discover. It's just that a lot of people don't know the secrets behind them. And I want to give you the secrets. So when I noticed things like this, and this was typical, not atypical, I said to myself, imagine what would happen if I actually put this whole webinar selling methodology into a system. And I did just that. I did this in October of last year, 2017. We created this product, this live in-person training called Genius Webinars. We sold it for $4,995 per person. 63 people said yes to it, and 63 was the exact number that could fit in this room, that we sat and retrained everybody in this room on my whole process from start to finish of how I craft and develop webinars that do over $100 million in total sales. And some of those people, like John Bowen, used it to build a $500,000 brand new business, and he'd never done a webinar before. Not for this type of thing. And Nick, he used these techniques to not just use webinars, but he used them in other parts of his business and had the highest close rates he'd ever seen in his life. Same thing with Guy, and even other people like John Benson, who are really good at selling in other areas such as video sales letters, use this and apply this to have a major breakthrough in their business. All because we went through meticulously the 4 sections of a webinar: the intro, content, transition, and close. And then we went through everything I do in each of these sections for every single webinar I've done that have attributed to over $100 million in sales. Now, would you like to today, with me, go through these freely and openly in our time together here? And we're live, by the way. And I will sit here and answer some questions for you, time permitted, at the end. Today is April 19th, and as I look at my phone, it's 11:10 p.m. Pacific time. And on this webinar, you're going to discover the introduction formula that gets more people to say yes to your offer than most people can do in their pitch. I'm going to give you the content method, a simple 7-step part process of how you can have more impact with whatever you teach than you thought possible. I'm going to break down for you a massive mistake that's happening in 9 out of 10 webinars that can be easily fixed by playing a mind trick on yourself. And I'll show you step by step how I pitch and sell everything. It's not creative, but oh my God, is it effective? And I'm going to break down for you a little sneaky funnel I use that you can use in your own business or in somebody else's business and get paid on something on a webinar that we just recently did that is over 2.6 million in billable revenue. Now, before we dive into all that, I have a quick question for you. Why do you think webinars work so well? What is it about the webinar that makes it so effective? And I'm telling you, and I was telling Mark this right before we actually started the call live, is so many people are now only beginning to wake up to the effectiveness of webinars. But why do they seem to be like the best thing to go from 0 to 100,000 or to $1 million in short order? Why do they seem to be the best thing for anybody, regardless of where you're at in your business, if you're just brand new starting or if you've already made your fortune? Why do webinars seem to work so well, so often, in so many different industries, for so many different types of products, services, software, and so on? Well, let me tell you what. First of all, they're the second most powerful medium for education. The only way that you can have impact on somebody else more effectively than a webinar is in person. But hey, I can help you today, and there's a lot of you on the call. And I can, from my home office here, help people all across the world. Isn't that wonderful? The other thing about a webinar, I don't think a lot of people understand this, but it caters to 20% of the market that represents 80% of the buying power. And you say, Jason, what does that mean? You might not know this, but at any given time in any type of industry, in any field, in any market, in any niche, whatever you want to call it, there's a small segment of that audience who represents almost all of the buying power of that audience. Now, here's what's interesting. Everybody does the opposite. They go after the masses. They go after everybody and they start selling them $10 things and $20 things and $30 things. And they're targeting a majority of the audience that spends a minority of the money. But the webinar is hyper-focused for that person who is willing to spend the appropriate amount of money to get the appropriate amount of value. And it's a blue ocean. It's there for the taking. And webinars are so effective at capitalizing on that, whether you realize it or not. And here's what has made me a millionaire, a multi-millionaire by the age of 30, is the more you serve, the more you can sell. And if there ever was something to write down or to frame and to put on your wall or up above your office desk where you could see it at all times, it's this. The more you serve, the more you can sell. And how do all businesses that exist make money? They sell things. So the more you can serve, and webinars are a wonderful service tool to help provide value in advance of the sell. The more you serve, the more you sell. And practically speaking, it's the thing that helps your customers take massive action as quickly as possible. It's the path to success is through massive action. If you can help people take massive actions, don't you deserve to be rewarded? If you can help people solve a problem they previously couldn't solve, don't you deserve to get rich as a result of that? Think about it. Don't you think that that is absolutely, if ever there was a time where you could get wealthy by helping more people, and the more you helped, the wealthier you could get? Isn't that wonderful? And a webinar does that. Even if you've never done a webinar before, you say, well, Jason, I've never done a webinar before. Don't I have to do all these other things? Don't I have to like pay my dues? No, you don't. That's the secret. You want to go to the top? Just jump to the top. The webinar will allow you to, as quickly as possible, go from obscurity to celebrity. And so this is an example here. Ben Cummings says 1.2 million in 3 days, having never done a sales webinar in my life. He literally printed out sales closes I use that are word for word that I've written down and just read them off of a sheet, and he sold. So some of this is just knowing what to say so people can understand the real value you provide. Now, here's my challenge to you, and this is a significant challenge, and I don't take this lightly. I've spent thousands of hours doing this. I've spent tens of thousands of hours creating the webinars that I've done for thousands of hours, and I've spent countless thousand more hours thinking about webinars, of how to create them and then perform for them. So how do I distill over 20,000 hours of expertise, the total sum of my knowledge, into something you can immediately put into action and have a bottom line impact the first time you use it and feel good and have fun doing it? I'm going to tell you, here's how. We are going to go through each of these sections, starting with what? Starting with the introduction. That's the first step. So whenever you sit down to create a webinar, when you create your next webinar and you're saying, how do I open the webinar? you're going to use this formula. Quick question. Who here has attended a webinar before? If you have, go ahead and type in yes into the chat box. And I know this is kind of silly. There's a chance that I don't think a single person on this webinar here today has not been on a webinar before. So most of us have an experience of being on a webinar, right? Now, do most webinar introductions leave a lot to be desired? The answer is yes. We will often put up with boring, tedious, subpar introductions because we are so interested in getting the results that we're willing to tolerate a lot of mediocre experience. But why? Why not make the introduction the strongest part? Because if you grab them right away, you're going to keep them. And if you keep them, then you can sell them. Here's the reality with the introduction. This is why it's so important to do it correctly, is you only get one chance to make a first impression. In your first 5 minutes, you can dazzle, dull, you can inspire or annoy, you can make money, or it can cost you money. And so what is the ideal introduction? The ideal introduction seizes attention of the audience, makes distraction impossible, and communicates something special is about to happen that will once and for all solve a problem afflicting your audience dearly, that the future is indeed bright. And you're going to help them realize it and make that future a reality. Oh my goodness. If you did that with your introduction, do you think that could make you a lot more money? If you did nothing else but that, how could your next year look? And the answer is it would look pretty good, wouldn't it? So what do great introductions do then? If we say, if my introduction checks this box, checks that box, and checks that box, what are those boxes that we would check? Well, let me tell you. A great introduction accomplishes all the following. It cements your authority status. It gets the audience to commit to following your advice. It brings up the objections that could get in the way of them following your advice as soon as humanly possible. It creates hope of a better tomorrow. And it provides enough intrigue to get people intellectually and emotionally invested for staying the whole time. And all of these elements are important. Authority is important because nobody wants to take financial advice from their broke uncle. And nobody wants to take health advice from their overweight, triple bypassed recently uncle. And nobody wants to take relationship advice from their sixth-time divorced uncle. Some of you, that's everyone, is one uncle that does all of those things for you. So authority is important. Commitment's important because people won't do anything unless you first get them to say, yes, I will commit to doing that. So you could teach till you're blue in the face and nobody will change any behavior if you don't get commitment. And objections, they're the things that cost more money than anything. Those are the things where people will cheat themselves at a big opportunity by telling themselves small things. And hope is important because if you don't see a better tomorrow, you're not going to make the investment today in time and money to make that tomorrow happen. So let's talk about authority. How do you accomplish authority in your webinars in the introduction? Not in a boring elementary way like this is who I am and this is why you should listen to me. Now, if that's all you do, it's better than nothing, but barely. Let me tell you, there are 4 elements and only 4 elements that I strive for. And if I do these in my introduction, I automatically, as a result, get authority status at the highest level. So personal results, positioning, celebrity, and testimonials. In 5 minutes, you should use all of the following. That should be what you should strive for. Now, if you say, Jason, I don't have any testimonials, that's okay. We can handle that. If you say, Jason, I don't know what about celebrity, we can deal with celebrity. We want as much of these as possible. But if we only use 1 or 2 of them, we're going to be better off than most people do. And this isn't just theoretical. I actually did this on you already. How did I achieve this in my introduction? I showed you personal results. It says, yes, I'm an expert at what I'm talking about. If you're not an expert at what you're talking about, you shouldn't be doing a webinar. Positioning. What's positioning? I put myself on par with established value, things that are already impressive, and I put myself equal to that. And you can do that as well. It's not that you don't have these things. It's just that if you don't do it in the most impactful way, your audience isn't going to be aware of that. And if they're not aware of that, they're not going to listen to you. Celebrity. I have pictures of me with people that you may or may not know. And you don't have to have actual famous people. There could be celebrities that are local to the people that are interested in your solutions, results, or testimonials, right? Other people's results. very easily, very casually within your introduction, you should accomplish all of those things. Most people don't use 6 testimonials in their whole presentation. I've already used 7 testimonials in the first few minutes of this presentation. But what does that communicate to you? It communicates that if you want to get a result, I can get you that result. And you need to communicate that to your audience, not just that you're a subject matter expert or that you're smart or that you want to help them. It's that you've helped people like them. And that's going to make them infinitely more believable that you can help them as well. So here's what you want to accomplish with your introduction. You want to have each person on the webinar immediately put into a buying mood within minutes, right away. You want to communicate something special is about to happen, a new exciting ride that your attendees are about to go on, where the destination is more happiness and less suffering, where the future is bright and the potential is unlimited. And if you do the 4 things that I just talked about here, or even 1 or 2 of those 4 things, you're off to the races. Question: if you did this and nothing else, do you think it would dramatically improve your webinar effectiveness? Seriously. A lot of people, they sell themselves so short, and it breaks my heart. Do you realize that as a human being, you have within you infinite potential? Do you realize that? That the most powerful computer in the world is not on your desk, but between your ears. Do you realize that? When I see you, I see within you the potential for greatness. But so many people sell themselves short thinking, well, you know, I don't have anything worthwhile to show anybody else. I can't command an audience and help improve them. I'm not good enough, blah, 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 right? It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of you have within you the ability and the power to help somebody else from one human being to another. But the real challenge isn't the fact that you do or don't have that ability. It's how do you communicate that? And if you don't communicate it effectively, you could be the greatest in the world at what you do, and you're going to make no money and help nobody. But if you communicate that effectively, you could be average at what you do, and you'll help more people, and you'll make more money. That's how the world works. Now, here's a tougher question to you. Do you think your audience deserves it? And every moment you deny it to them is a moment you actively participate in their despair. Do you think your audience deserves the best you, where you can show them the best you and the best them that you can help them be? And that if you know how to do that and you don't do that, isn't that almost equivalent to helping them continue to suffer? That's a tough question. And I'm hopefully going to get you to commit to changing the situation, because I've now opened the door for you to do this. But if you want to stay small and you want to make excuses, it's not going to happen, is it? But if you say, okay, Jason, I understand it. I'm ready to go out there. And yeah, I'm going to learn a few things along the way. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit challenging, but I'm going to help connect with people in a way that nobody else who is reaching out to these people can connect with them right in the introduction using the webinar. And that's going to allow me to get that authority status. That's going to allow me to have them trust in me enough to give me their money. And as a result, I'm going to make them better. And if you said that to yourself, congratulations, you are so much closer to your financial goals just by switching that new light on. And you say, okay, Jason, so what do I need to do if I really want to go down that path? And do you really want to go down that path? If you do, here's where you start. When I sit down to create the webinars, and I'm recommending that you do something similar, I say authority status. How are you going to show them that you're somebody they should listen to and follow? Just fill in the blanks. Creating commitment. What are things that if they agreed to would make them more likely to buy what you're selling at the end of the webinar? What are things that you can get them to agree to in the beginning that will help you sell in the end? Just fill in the blanks. Objections. What are things that are going to get in the way of them saying yes to something they should say yes to? Write those down and say, this is how I'm going to bring them up in the introduction. Fostering hope for the future. What in their life is going to be better once they actually realize the solution that you offer? Write those down. And so on. Webinars are more about subtraction, not addition. You say, Jason, what do you mean by that? I mean, what we do is we sit down, we fill in the blanks, and then we puzzle piece together the best elements. And in 5 or 10 minutes, we are connecting deeper with our audience. We are creating more influence and persuasion simply because we're better prepared. We can do this quicker, easier, and it's more effective. Isn't that interesting? That's how success looks like, though. Okay? Now, let me give you a little bit extra credit here. You can't use the following magic trick I'm about to show you every time, but when you have something special, something truly one of a kind that you know is effective, you can break this little funnel out when it matters most. So once you get a webinar doing well, you want to optimize what happens before and after the webinar, aka the funnel, the webinar funnel. So remember this when I said, hey, listen, we just did this webinar at $2.6 million in sales. Well, there was a trick. Okay, this is what the registration page looked like. So we say, we tell them this is a magic ranking software because it's to our Amazon audience that can put products on page 1. Go here and register for the webinar. They go here and register for the webinar. The next page, they see a page like this. It says NDA. Please read carefully. You are not registered yet. Before we complete your registration, you must agree to our non-disclosure. What we're about to show you is too powerful to be let out in the wire. Agree at the bottom before you complete your webinar registration. What do you think happens in a scenario like this? When you make somebody jump through this extra hoop, you really create commitment and you really create focus on what you have to say on your webinar before you even start the webinar. How do you think this helps maximize sales? So get the webinar strong, get it going, and then what you do around the webinar can make it even more profitable. This is how we take 7-figure webinars and turn them into 8-figure webinars. All right? So far, so good? You liking what we're doing here today? I bet you a lot of this is relatively new in the sense of this is not how you're used to hearing people talk about this kind of thing. Well, that's the deal. You don't do ordinary things and get extraordinary results. You do extraordinary different things to get extraordinary results. And we've talked about just one element of the webinar, the introduction. Now let's talk about the second element, which hangs a lot of people up, even though it's the most straightforward way, the most straightforward element of a webinar is the content portion of the webinar. Let me ask you this question. It's a very important question for you to consider. A lot of people ignore this question, and I think it costs them a lot of money. Is it possible to give the best, most informative education and get 0 people to buy from you on a webinar? Is it possible? Yeah, happens all the time. First 2 years I was in this business, it happened to me. I thought, hey, if I just educated people enough, somehow magically they would hand me over money. But the world does not work that way, unfortunately. Now think about it from the opposite side. Is it possible to give little to no valuable information on a webinar and close the lights out? And the answer is sadly, unfortunately, yes, it is. That's just how the world works. And to pretend otherwise is to be naive. And to be naive is to be costly when it comes to your future and your financial well-being. We even have a term for this. It's called a pitch fest. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. We do. Now, here's the real breakthrough. Here's what really, truly put me on the path of multimillionaire status in short order. Would you like to know what the breakthrough is? It's this. I asked myself a very important question one day. I said, what would it take to give the most value possible so the person would leave the webinar better off than they were before they first showed up for it? And if and only if then, if it makes sense to them to show how investing in your offer would provide more value than what they've already experienced. And that's not very clear. So let me say it in a more clear way. How could I leave them better off after the webinar than they were before and simultaneously show them that it costs them more money not to buy the product at the end than to buy it? So essentially, we help them understand if this product is right for you, it's going to be the best product you could buy, and then you'll automatically buy it. And if this product isn't right for you, then we don't want you to buy it because we only want to help the people that we can help. How do we make that happen? It's a great question. See, every webinar has 2 cells. Cell number 1 is obviously the product. And yeah, it could be the product, it could be the software, it could be the service, it could be the physical product, it could be the digital product, it could be business to business, it could be business to consumer. It doesn't matter. Let's just call that the product, right? You could have people hate from you and buy from you. A lot of people make that mistake of saying people only like to shop with those that they know, like, and trust. That's not true. Most of us spend money every single month with the cable company, and I don't think very many people like the cable company. We buy products based on the solutions that they provide. Now, unfortunately, that means you can trick, deceive, coerce, or mislead somebody into giving you money. And yes, in the short term, you can win, but in the long term, you lose. You lose karmically, first of all. It's not good for the soul. But you also lose because typically you're going to run out of people that you can trick in short order because you missed the second cell. This is why webinars really make some serious money. The second cell is you. You have to sell people on the ability of being excited to hear from you after the webinar. So when your webinar is done, are people more excited or less excited to hear from you? If the answer isn't more, you've messed up. So how do we create content that simultaneously makes us a lot of money and makes people sold on us? So they're more likely to hear from us so we can get paid a lot today and we can get paid even more tomorrow. Let me ask you a question. Does the following ring a bell to you? the phrase providing value. We all use this phrase, but what does it even mean? It's good to have a definition to these things and really to think and reflect on them. So here's my definition, and maybe you want to adopt some or all of it as your definition. I'll leave it for you to decide. Here's my definition of value: the ability for the attendee to learn and gain insight in a way that automatically results in a positive change in their behavior. So if you teach somebody who wants to lose weight all the mechanics of losing weight, and then they continue to eat and exercise in the same exact manner, I would argue you have not provided value to them. Would you agree with that? I don't think you've provided real value to behavior changes. If you teach somebody something and as a result, they change their habits, that is valuable. That's what we need to do in the content portion of our webinar. We need to forge a different identity in our audience where behavior automatically follows that new identity. So if somebody feels confident now, they're more likely to be successful in whatever they've done if they felt scared about it before. I'm actually getting my head itself because that's the next slide. It says value. If they were scared before and they're confident now, that's valuable. If they had inner shame and you replaced it with inner love, that, my friend, is very, very valuable. And if they felt hopeless and you gave them hope, that's value. And that's what you need to do. Now, here's what's beautiful about that. It's less about being very sophisticated and being one-of-a-kind type of information and inventing new techniques that nobody's ever heard before. I mean, with the amount of free podcasts that exist today, it's highly unlikely you're going to have any new insight that somebody else already hasn't had. The trick isn't better content. The trick is making them feel better on how you present the content. So what's content done right? Content done right is this: you say less and you have a greater impact. You meet them where they're at so you can take them where they need to go. Content done right is when there was no hope, now hope exists, because it's not just what they need to do, it's what they need to do right now and how they feel about what they need to do right now. I learned this from Jim Rohn. He says it's not what you know, it's how you feel about what you know. And this is real value. So when I developed a whole system, because this is the key, if you want to make money online, you have to develop systems. What are systems? Systems are things that automate your thought process. So you don't have to be creative and you can be hyper efficient, very quick to make decisions without even having to think about them, and those decisions will be right. So how do we design that? Here's how I designed the value providing process. You start with a clearly defined outcome. You can't hit a target with a blindfold on. So let's give them a target to hit. Then let's create a step-by-step process for hitting that target. And then it's not just what to do, it's why it's important, what it looks like after you've accomplished it, and committing to doing it, as well as here's what you need to do. I'm telling you, do you suppose, by the way, that this is not only effective in webinars, but pretty much effective in every business situation? The webinar is just kind of like an easy way to make a lot of money, but once you start doing this in the webinar, you're going to start seeing this show up in every other area of your life in a positive and effective manner. You don't make $100 million in sales without helping disproportionately providing more than $100 million in value in the real world. And this is how I did it. So let me give you my defined outcome for this webinar. Would that be okay? My defined outcome was the following: show anyone how to add webinars to their business in a way that is easy, enjoyable, and has an immediate impact on their bottom line, regardless of whether it's their first webinar or their next. This is like a homing missile for every piece of content I create for this webinar. And if you take one sentence to write down to say, after the webinar I'm going to create, based on what Jason taught me today, this is the outcome that my audience will be able to do. Now, while every other webinar presenter or every other person in that field is trying to sell whatever they're trying to sell, and they're giving people fuzzy targets to hit, and they're putting blindfolds on them, and they're facing them backwards, you're the only person that is truly, absolutely providing value to that person. And as a result, you deserve all the riches that come with that. Okay? Now, once you have a defined outcome, you break it down into steps. How do we get them there? No less than 3, no more than 5 steps. That's it. Now, suppose, by the way, if you teach somebody something that's only 4 steps, do you think they can remember all those steps? The answer is yes. Do you think they can follow all those? Of course they can. And that's the value. It's less about the steps and it's more about the system. They can wrap their head around it very easily. And if they can wrap their head around it, they can do something with it. That's the secret. So what's the step-by-step process that I'm giving you here today? It's simple. Intro, content, transition, and pitch. Now for each step, here's how we teach, quote unquote, teach each step. First, we provide context. So when I taught you how to do good, powerful, strong introductions for your webinars, the context of why it was so important is because it either makes or it breaks you. You either dazzle or you dull. You only get one chance to make a first impression. That's why the introduction is so incredibly powerful. I gave you the vision. Once you do the webinar correctly, it makes a distraction impossible. It communicates something special is about to happen. The future is brighter, and you're going to help them make it a real reality. Now you're excited to want to know how to do strong introductions once you have the vision. The context is this is why this is important. The vision is this is what it looks like once you do this. And then the strategy is pretty simple. These are the 5 elements that you have to be aware of when doing an introduction. So check this box, check that box, and you're done. And then at the end, I give you a commitment. Do you think your audience deserves it? And every moment you deny it to them is a moment you're actively participating in their despair. I drive it home because I want you to do this. Why do I want you to do this? Why do I want you to follow this strategy? Because you will be able to do more, create more, be more successful. And I like to be able to say I shared a small piece of that success. Just like when Mark gives me some of the credit in the beginning of this webinar. I want that. Not only is it good for business, because the more people I help, the more people come to me and want me to help them as well, but it's good for the soul. So I want to do everything I can. If I know I have the answer, if I know I have the cure to what poisons you, I want to make sure you take that cure. And that's what the commitment does. And you do this for each and every step. It's not that it takes that long. It's not that it's that hard. This is not that complicated. This is simple. This is, dare I say, easy. It is. Once you have the combination, once you have the combination to the safe, it's easy to open the safe, isn't it? Once you have the treasure map, it's easier to find the treasure, isn't it? The hardest part is the treasure map. I've developed that, and I'm handing it over to you here today. Now, here's some additional best practices when it comes to doing your content. Provide a roadmap. Everything, if they understand, this is how it relates to what we covered before, and this is how it relates to what we will cover, that automatically will make whatever you teach people more likely to help them and improve their life. Second thing, check the emotional state. When I teach them this, how do they feel? I've created a whole cheat sheet to make sure that we are really connecting with people at an emotional level, not just at a logical level. Make continual improvements to your webinar. So the first time I did the webinar I showed you earlier, the magic trick webinar, we did 1.7 million. The second webinar we did last year, and we did 2.6 million. And right now we're on pace because we're just wrapping it up this round to do over that, to do 3 million. So each time a webinar is something you can continually improve from one presentation to the next. I've done this today. You're going to see at the end, I've added 2 new things that didn't exist last time I did this webinar, which was Tuesday, 2 days ago. The webinar just keeps getting better, and they're making money, and they're keeping making more money, and they're getting better. Now, would you agree that if you follow this formula, not only will it help your content have even more impact, but isn't it easier to create content when you can do so within a framework, as long as you use it, right? Now, here's a question to you. When presented with a better and easier way to do things, do you do it the old way, or do you start doing it the new way? That's the commitment. Will you commit to me to start doing it in this new, more effective, more powerful, and easier way now that I've shown it to you? So far, we've talked about the introduction. We talked about the content. Now let's talk about the second half of the framework, the transition and the close. Transition. The reality is successful webinars start selling the moment the first word is spoken and the first slide is shown. Only in your mind is there actually a difference between so-called content and so-called pitching. As such, the transition serves to put you automatically in a state of mind where people are most receptive and eager to hear about what you have to offer. I've designed the transition because most people feel uncomfortable with selling. I don't understand it because selling is the single greatest thing that you could ever do in your life. Every day, everybody sells somebody on something else. Every day, there are people out there selling communism and socialism, and you have to sell capitalism against that. Every day, there are people selling really bad ideas, and we have to sell good ideas to counteract them. The transition is put you in a state of mind to understand that selling isn't something you do to somebody. Selling is something you do for somebody. And that's what the transition accomplishes. Now, I can look at most people who pitch on webinars, and I can watch as the money leaves them, where they lose ungodly amounts of money just by looking at the sound wave, not even getting on their webinars. This is where the pitch started for this individual client that came to me who was struggling, who I helped make a lot of money when I fixed this little thing for them. Because when they start pitching, they completely change the tonality because they feel uncomfortable. And the problem is, if you feel uncomfortable selling, they'll be uncomfortable buying. But here's how we fix that. The best transition accomplishes the following. You get your audience to feel like you're doing a favor by giving them the opportunity to invest in what you're offering to them. If you nail the transition, they will be begging you for the chance to spend money with you. How comfortable would you feel if somebody was begging to give you money to buy something from you? How comfortable would you feel selling in that situation? That's what we do with the transition formula. Transition formula has 3 parts: the recap, yes momentum, and 2 choices. So the 60-second recap, whatever you've taught up until that point or showed up until that point in your webinar, you're going to cover it again in 60 seconds or less. You're going to condense the most powerful insights into a series of bullet points that you're going to fire off in rapid succession to dramatically show the amount of value that you provided. For example, on this webinar, I can say, today, you discovered a framework that's been tested across 9 figures worth of sales. I showed you a magic trick that made 1.4 million the first time we used it. And I showed you how in the first 5 minutes to make a more effective webinar than most people do over the whole webinar, and so on and so on. I could do that for 60 seconds. Show you each and every little cool thing that you've done. Now you've been reminded in a short period of time of all the value that has been created for you today. And so that's why you want to do this in the transition. You say, so far on this webinar, we've covered benefit, 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 benefit. What do you think that does to your audience? It makes them think, wow, this has been time well spent together. I really appreciate and I'm grateful. And when you put somebody in a state of gratitude, isn't it much easier to offer to continue to be a service to them? The answer is yes. And that's kind of in line with the second part of the transition formula, which is to get yes momentum. Here's the reality. Smaller yeses lead to bigger yeses. So once we recap the value in 60 seconds or less, now you fire off a series of yes questions, one after the next, like this. Was our time together today enjoyable so far? Have you also found it to be valuable? Do you now feel more comfortable with your ability to make money with your webinars? Have you come up with some really good ideas you're already excited about implementing in your business? And is it fair to say using these techniques would give you a significant advantage over your competition? Yes, 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 yes. Last thing you need to do in the transition is use the 2 choices. Here's why this is important. Now, there was a study done across a group of doctors. First group was asked, hey, we have this surgery. There's a 90% survival rate. Would you recommend it? The answer is yes. Most would. Second group was asked, hey, we have this surgery. It has a 10% fatality rate. Would you recommend it? Most would not. Same exact information. However, you can get completely different responses to the same information depending on how you present it. And so I have painstakingly trialed and errored my way throughout the years on discovering the right combinations of words of how to set up your offer so when you present it, people are so excited to hear about it and to be sold on it. Would you like the script? Well, here it is. It's called the 2 choices script. Let me read it to you. I have absolute confidence you could take everything we covered here today and on your own go out and put it into action and get results that you previously thought were not possible. I am certain just with the information we covered on this webinar today, left on your own with your own resources, your own time, and your own effort, you can make a go at this in a way that most people will never be able to. And if that were your only option, it would be a worthy ideal to pursue. But what if there was another option? An option that allowed us to go at this together, a chance to go deeper than we can in one measly hour and one measly webinar, connecting together one measly time. What if I were to play an active role in your results, took a responsibility in your success, and had an obligation to your outcome? How would that make things different? If I had such an option for you, would you love to hear more about it and what it could do for you? That's why it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you product name. That's why it's with great pleasure I introduce to you the Genius Webinars, or whatever the product is. Now, let me ask you this. As you heard that, did that feel good to you? Could you say to yourself, yeah, I would like to know what that is? That's the whole point. You can just follow that word for word. You could literally read it. You don't have to read it as good as I do. You only have to read it as good as I do once you want to make $100 million in sales. But you can make millions reading it a tenth as good as I just did. More important than how you read it is what you're reading. Just read that. And now people's like, yeah, I want to know. If my choices are doing it by myself or doing it with you, helping me, providing resources to me, yeah, let me take a look at that. You get people excited now. And if people are excited, you don't feel uncomfortable selling them at that point. Do you think using a transition like this would make you more comfortable presenting your offer? And do you also think it would make your audience more eager to buy from you? And isn't it safe to say that most webinars don't do this, even though it's mostly fill in the blanks? That's it. That's all there is to it. A lot of this stuff is just copying what I've already figured out. And that's the value. That's the whole point of understanding that from a transition standpoint of like, yeah, I could do this on my own. I could rewrite everything that Jason said. I could come up with all my own closes. I could come up with all my own transitions. And would that be worth you saving whatever the investment is to get all my secrets? You say, well, I saved some money, but I spent 1,000 more hours and I screwed up 100 more times. They say, no. That's what your offer is to somebody, though. It is a way for them to get more value than the price they pay for it. And this is how we show them that and get them excited to hear the offer. And then we close. And that's the last section of the framework. The close. When it comes to a webinar, the close is the least important part. You say, what? What do you mean, Jason? Why? Here's why. A better intro will naturally lead to a better close. Content that creates transformational emotional states automatically makes people more likely to invest in themselves, to further themselves, and to better themselves. A transition that puts your offer as a position from the gifts above, from the heavens above as a gift, is going to make them more likely to desire and want to be part of your offer. And then closing is just a matter of technique. This is the close stack that we use: offer, price, bonus, guarantee, and objections. The offer is what they get. Least important part of the sell. Most people mistake this as the most important part of the sell. I could take all these webinars out there that are already successful, and 9 out of 10 of them, I could do one thing and double or triple their profits. And that one thing is how they present the offer. A lot of people forget. You buy the drill for the hole, not for the drill. What they get, which is the offer, are the features. And now people need to know this to justify their purchase, but it's the least important part of the close. Therefore, we spend the least amount of time on this. Yet most webinars, even successful webinars, are successful in spite of, not because of themselves. This is what I like about the webinar. You could screw up 90% of it, and you're still probably going to make more money with it than you can make with anything else. That's the power of the webinar, right? But why not? Why settle for $20 bills when there's $100 bills underneath of them? So the offer is something that we have to get out of the way as quickly as possible so people can start to entertain the idea of saying yes to our offer. So here's what we do with the offer: product tagline and name. 1 sentence benefit statement and highlight 2 to 4 major components. We are in and out of the offer in 5 minutes or less. So 5 minutes within introducing the product name, we are then saying, go to this URL and pay this amount of money to buy this thing. 5 minutes or less. Most people take 30 minutes or more before people can first decide if they want this or not. We get them to decide very quickly if they want this or not. And if they don't, we give them new information. And then we ask them if they want it. And if they don't, then we give them new information. Then when we ask them if they want it. And then they say, okay, maybe I do, right? Or yes, I do. So let me give you an example of how this works. Product name and tagline, Genius Webinars, tagline, secret of 100 million in webinar sales, benefit statement, a step-by-step approach for crafting webinars that outsell your competition, provide more value to your customers, and are easier and quicker and more enjoyable to create than you ever thought possible. Highlight the major components. Here's the process for highlighting major components: headline, 3 benefits, and then maybe proof optionally, and future pacing optionally. Most important part of this is the headline of the 3 benefits. So when I first sold Genius Webinars, and I sold this for $4,995, here's how I sold it. I sold it as a 2-day in-person training. That was the headline. The benefits: a full sense experience of how to do webinars, session structure to turn ideas into implementation, surrounding yourself by the best of the best, et cetera, et cetera. So you explain each part of your offer in 1 slide, headline, benefits. And then if you have proof To validate your claims, you put that next. So in this case, Russell Brunson here has built like over $100 million company himself with ClickFunnels, has a testimonial that I play for them that talks about saying, I'm one of the best salespeople he's ever met. So of course you want to learn from somebody like me. Future pacing. Upon completion, anytime a great opportunity presents itself where you know a webinar is just the thing for it, you leap into action with a newfound sense of confidence, knowing full well your promotions have more oomph, more value, and more impact on your bottom line in the world around you. Then just repeat this for each component. So it takes you about a minute for each thing. So if you have 3 or 4 things in your offer, you're 4 minutes in and you're already revealing price. Wow. Now, here's the thing you got to understand about price. A lot of people screw this up too. Money on its own is virtually useless. You could burn it for warmth, or if you got really cold, I guess you could wear it. It's not about the money. It's about what it can get you in exchange for the money that matters. In other words, the more obvious you make it that there's massive value for a minimum price, the more money you will make. And the sweet spot is you want to make them feel like they're taking advantage of you because of how much value they feel they're getting versus what they're paying for it. I want every single one of you to feel, man, I feel like I'm ripping Jason off because I'm paying this little amount of money in comparison to this big amount of value that I get. So how do we do that? What's the easiest, most efficient way to do that? The first thing you do is link it to something absurd yet true. So I could say these webinars are worth $10 million if done effectively. Then you drop it. In the right hands, it's worth at least $1 million. Then you drop it again. I hang out in rooms where I pay $100,000 to discuss techniques like this, and it's a good deal even then. Then we drop it one more time. Hey, we recently, this exact same teaching that I'm giving you today, people paid $4,995 for it. However, if you act fast enough, you can get out a special one-time investment of blank when you go to whatever URL. Now people can understand, oh my gosh, there's a lot of value here because you compare it to other things that are on par with it in value, even though your price is much less than the price of those things. And by the way, have they even seen the full offer yet? They have not. They've seen a small portion of the offer, and you're linking price to that small portion of the offer. And therefore, anything you add to it is going to exponentially increase the likeliness of them to want to buy it. Now, here's what's important, though. We've gotten our first call to action out of the way quickly, so now we can go immediately back to stacking value. And we stack value with bonuses. This is the transition. Once you reveal price for the first time on the webinar, you say, by signing up right away, you're going to get your hands on some extra special bonuses. Bonus number 1, bonus number 2, bonus number 3, right? Just a quick aside here. Don't you think that just following this formula, if you just did this formula with no creativity, not deviating it from one bit, do you think it would significantly help you sell anything? Doesn't have to be your product, anybody's product. Yeah, I use a formula. I don't invent this thing. I invented it once upon a time. Now I just fill in the blanks. And that's how you go from 0 to $100 million. You don't do it because you become better every year at this. You do it because you can do it in 1/10 of the time with a 1/10 of the effort. And that's what I'm giving you here today, right? So bonus presentation formula is the exact same process. The only thing we add is context, why it's the bonus. So for example, if I were to make the ultimate webinar funnel a bonus for Genius Webinars, it would look like this. I could say bonus number 1, the ultimate webinar funnel. Webinar success is more than just the presentation. It's the reg page, the thank you page, the order page, the replay page. When used right, it can double or even triple your profits. Would you like for me to give you the best fill-in-the-blank webinar funnel I've ever used, over $100 million in webinar sales? That's the context. So bonuses are essentially the same exact thing we just did with only one extra step involved, which is here's why this is a bonus. Here's how this makes sense as a bonus related to the offer. Now, here's something that's interesting. Isn't it likely you're going to spend more time going over the bonuses than you did the core offer? And the answer is yes, you should. So if I spend 5 minutes saying, here's what you get and here's what you pay for you get, I might spend the next 20 minutes saying, and here's what you get for free, and here's what you get for free, and here's what you get for free, and here's what you get for free. And what do you suppose that happens? What do you suppose happens? People say, wow, I was going to buy anyway. I was thinking of buying anyway. I was leaning towards buying anyway. And now they say, I have to buy because what an unbelievable deal it is. This is the little extra trick involved. It's how you present the offer that's more important than what the offer actually is. And this is how we do this. And then you risk reverse with the guarantee, and then you start smashing objections, and along the way, you sprinkle scarcity in throughout the close. Timeout. Whew. Breathe. I am very aware that I'm making you sip from a fire hose today. And I want you to relax, because Rome wasn't built in a day. In our short time today so far, I've condensed, cram-packed, and squeezed together as tightly as possible a whole process for webinar domination. But the reality is this. Even if you use just a tiny little fraction of all we covered today, don't you feel like you've taken a gigantic leap forward with your ability to make tons of money with webinars? Now, I don't know what you knew about webinars coming into this call today, but it'd be a safe bet that some or all of what we covered today was new and valuable to you. Stuff such as the $100 million framework, such as the introduction formula and the content formula and the killer close routine and the value providing process and the emotional states that you should consider when creating your content and the transition formula and the extra little magic tricks that you develop when you do this, as I've done this, to the tune of $2.6 million per webinar, and on and on and on. Question: has our time on the webinar thus far been well spent? Question number 2, do you feel more confident with using webinars? Question number 3, can you see how even just 1 or 2 things I showed you today can help you in your business, regardless of whether you use it in webinars or even elsewhere? Question number 4, are you excited to make a go out of this, to see what wonderful things it will open up in your life? Enter Genius Webinars. Now, on October 12th and 13th of 2017, Joe Polish and I had 63 people come. Each of them invested $4,995. They went down to Genius Network headquarters, and we recorded the training over 2 days, meticulous step-by-step, documented on how I was able to generate over $100 million in webinar sales. And we put his whole film crew with their $250,000 worth of professional video equipment to good use to capture every second of this training that people paid $4,995 to be a part of. As a result, we have a fully documented system on every component of what we do to make $1 million plus pretty much every time we create a new webinar. So things such as session number 1, the whole overview of the process. Session number 2, offer, price, and bonuses. Every trick, every method, everything I know to do what I showed you here today. Session number 3, guarantee, scarcity, and objections. We didn't have time to cover those today. I cover those in full depth in this training. Session number 4, we break down the ins and outs of how to create your defined outcome and break it down into a step-by-step process. So now you know exactly how to do that. Session number 5, context and vision, how to get them so excited to learn what you want them to learn and show them what it's like after they learn it, so they're more likely to learn it and more likely to buy the offer at the end that you offer to them. Strategy and commitment. In session 7, the transition, in and out of the transition of exactly how to do that step by step. In session 8, how to create that authority so people will want to buy from you without you barely saying anything. Session number 9, creating the commitment, the hope, the objections, and the intrigue. So again, people are likely to say yes even before they know what they're saying yes to. How to put this all together, literally from starting with a blank webinar slide to having something that will make you millions of dollars, and little optimizations and tricks that we discovered along the way. Would you like to get your hands on each and every one of these sessions? It gets better. In addition, you're going to get the full, not just the video training, but the PDF version of the workbook that I wrote personally and that I use for every webinar that I create, so you can implement all of this in a snap. So it'll say, for example, here are the elements of a good introduction. Here are examples of what you can do for an introduction. Here is the fill in the blanks now for you to fill in the blanks, so you can automatically kind of assemble your introduction with the least amount of effort and time. Here's the content. Here are the 7 things you need to do in the content. Did you do number 1? Check. Did you do number 2? Check. Here are the things that you can put in there. So again, you could puzzle piece it together, because that's how webinar success is. It isn't some unbelievable mystical process. It's simply taking this piece and putting this piece and putting that piece and putting that piece into place. You get that. You get all the slides of every single thing I've taught in the training. And the reality is you get the best deal on how to do webinars that can make you millions of dollars. Now listen, companies have paid me millions in royalties for webinars I've consulted with and helped them create. We've helped customers, many customers, become millionaires with this webinar process already. And we sold out a conference to create this training called Genius Webinars for $4,995. And now it's instantly available to you, not for $4,995, but from a one-time installment of $1,497, or if you prefer, 4 installments spaced 30 days apart of just $399. Best of all, while this limited offer is available, and it is only available at genius-webinars.com/mark, so go there right now and sign up. When you sign up, you're also going to get the special following bonuses for free as long as you sign up before the countdown timer hits 0. Bonus number 1, immediate webinar profits. If you're in a situation where you need a webinar done as fast as humanly possible, you'll love this bonus. It breaks down the 80-20 of webinar pitch webinars and is the easiest way to start making money fast. So Ari Meisel, who's a Genius Webinar customer, says, listen, I took this, handed it over to somebody else while I was getting ready to board a plane. When I landed, they had the webinar done for me based on this, and he closed 25% of his webinar attendees on a $497 product. So if you need to make money as fast as humanly possible, here's how you do this. So let's just say you sign up today for the installment option, the 4 installment instead of the one time, and that's $399. Do you suppose if you use just this bonus alone and you sold 2 units of a product, haven't you already started making profit? And the answer is yes, you have. I'm selling you $100 bills for $1 today. And any sane person, if they realize that and sees the value of this in their business, is going to go to genius-webinars.com/mark. That's the first bonus, is the immediate webinar profits. Bonus number 2, the ultimate webinar funnel. So as we have already discussed, as I talked about earlier, registration page, thank you page, the webinar itself, the sign up page, and the replay page, all of these can contribute to your success. So a tale of 2 webinars. Here's 2 webinars with the exact same amount of traffic and with the exact same conversion rate. One of them makes $62,000 and one of them makes $250,000. Not just the webinar, but the funnel. That's what you need to be successful when you use webinars. So I'm going to give you the fill-in-the-blank, plug-and-play templates to drop your perfect webinar into the perfect webinar funnel in seconds. And I'm going to give you a video training, not just the funnels, but exactly why this is effective, how this is effective, what matters, and so on and so forth. In fact, there are 2 major secret weapons I use in my funnels that I'm not going to disclose here, but you will get them and understand immediately how insanely powerful they are for you and your business as long as you go to genius-webinars.com/mark and sign up right now. And so Jimmy Hardy, he says this. He says, I immediately increased my registration rate by 10% using these templates. And he says, between that and other improvements I'm going to make using Jason's methodology, that's going to be several $million. So my question to you, would you invest a small amount of money today if it meant several millions of dollars for you in the near future? And the answer is yes. So you get that, the ultimate webinar funnel, plus the immediate webinar profits. And you also get my training on exactly how to do slides like the slides you've seen today. Listen. When done right, a keynote or a PowerPoint slide will outconvert any other approach on a webinar any day of the week. I'll show you exactly how in record time to design your slides to maximize your selling message from introduction to close. Hey, you know what? I'll do you one better. Would you like this template today? This very template I'm using and that I use for every single webinar I create. I just use the same template. Would you like me just to give you that template in both Keynote and PowerPoint formats so you can use it with either one? Okay, done. As long as you go to genius-webinars.com/mark and sign up, and it doesn't matter if you take the 4 installments of $399 or you take care of it all at once for $1497, it's yours. So in addition to my template, plus all the reasons of how I design and lay out my webinars, you get the webinar funnel as well, so you can just click a couple buttons and now you're off to the races. And you get the immediate webinar profits if you need to make money right away as soon as humanly possible, only knowing 5% of everything that there is to know with webinars. What else is there? Bonus number 4, would you like my webinar swipes? What does that mean? Well, here's the deal. Want to see me in action with my most profitable webinar I've ever done? I've archived my best webinar for you that's generated over 30 million in sales in the last 4 years. You're going to see that webinar. You can watch it. You're also going to see the emails we use to promote that webinar. You're going to see the landing pages we use. You're going to see the order forms. You're going to see everything. You will make so much money just copying what I do in the real world, and I'm going to show you that whole campaign. It's a campaign you can't see any other way because we definitely don't allow people to see this in the wild because of how this funnel works and how everything's run. It's the only place you can spy on my best performing webinar. And let me tell you this, if you become a customer of mine, which you will when you go to genius-webinars.com/mark, I give you permission to steal any of the closes, any of the copy, anything I use, and use it in your business if you become my Genius Webinar member today at genius-webinars.com/Mark. You get the webinar slides. You get the slide template and the slide design training. You get the ultimate webinar funnel. You get the immediate webinar profits. What else? Bonus number 5, the pure webinars training. I have created over the years several 6, 7, and even 8-figure webinars. Would you like to see me analyze and break down the thought process behind them? Here's why I did this one. Here's why I came up with this one. Here's how the flow works here. I will tell you, repetition is the key to real learning. And when you see that this formula works over and over again for a variety of different products in a variety of different situations, you're going to get it. And you're going to say, wow, how was money making ever hard? This and a whole bunch more were part of a training I used to sell for $2,000. It's no longer publicly available because I've only made it exclusively a bonus for those who say yes to genius-webinars.com/Mark today. This includes the video training, the MP3s, the PDFs, the transcripts, and more. In addition to that, the webinar swipes, the slide template, and the slide designs, the ultimate webinar funnel, the immediate webinar profits. Bonus number 6, Webinar Pitch Secrets 1 and 2. These 2 books have more word-for-word, universally applicable closes than any other training on existence in the internet. If you ever just wanted to copy specific time-tested and word-for-word proven closes you can drop into any webinar pitch for virtually any product or any niche, you're going to love this bonus. So when Ben Cummings earlier did his first webinar and did $1.3 million in sales in it, what he did was literally print this out and just read these word for word when it came time to sell. And he made a lot of money. Because it's not the person saying it, it's the words they say that make the difference. And wouldn't that be worth to you a small investment that you have to make today at genius-webinars.com/Mark? And the answer is absolutely it would be for you. If it just worked one time once, it would be worth it for you, but it will work all the time forever. So you get all my closes, you get all the breakdowns of all my most successful webinars, you get the swipes of how we promote them because there's no theory here. You get my slide template and exactly how to design and do your own. You get the ultimate webinar funnel to put your webinars in, and if you need to make money ASAP, you get the immediate webinar profits trainings as well. What else? If you want to use GoToWebinar, you don't have to, but they're my preferred software to use, because I make the most money with GoToWebinar. You don't have to use it, but if you're going to use it, I'm going to give you exactly how to use it step by step. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to sign up right now at genius-webinars.com/Mark. If you're unsure about it or if the money's tight, take the installment option of $3.99 for installments. If you're totally in right now and you know immediately you're going to go at and you're going to set this world on fire, then take the one time at $14.97. It doesn't matter which one you take. You get access to everything immediately. All bonuses, all course material, everything. The same exact training, literally the same exact training that people have already paid $4,995 is yours today if you act fast enough for either $14.97 or $3.99 spaced over 4 installments. Genius-webinars.com/Mark. If you say, Jason, our webinar is right for me. Because maybe that's what you're thinking right now. Should I do webinars? I don't know if I should do it or not. I see the value there. I understand I could do really well with them, but should I even do them? Let me run you through a little thought exercise here. Do you feel a moral and ethical responsibility to get your solution into the hands of as many people as possible? Or somebody else's solution that you could help and get rewarded for that? Do you feel obligated? If the answer is yes, then you need to be doing webinars ASAP. Do you feel a more educated person would have an easier time saying yes and getting more out of it, whatever solution you're selling, providing, or marketing? If the answer is yes, then webinars are the thing for you. Now, do you suppose it's a smart idea to use multiple different vehicles of marketing in your business so you can say, hey, Jason, I already do this over here and it makes me money, so why should I do webinars? And the answer is you should do all of those things. Adding a webinar to what already you're doing doesn't just make you money from the webinar, it helps the thing you're doing make more money as well. Here's the best question of all, though. Does your heart gravitate you towards wanting to do webinars? Is there been a part of you at all at any point in time today that says, man, I want to do that. Man, I would like to do that. If the answer is yes, then the answer is yes to Genius Webinars, genius-webinars.com/Mark. Get started here today. I've given you the option, if the funds are tight for you right now, to still be able to be involved with this with the 4 installment plan. Because I don't care exactly how you get in. What I care is what you do once you get in. And I'm on the hunt to make more millionaires this year than any other marketer alive or dead can. And I need your help. in order to do that. Now, let me tell you this. This is my life's work. So whatever you have today is the worst Genius webinars will ever be. And I know that's weird to pitch that and say that. Why? What do I mean by that? Because every week, practically, we're making this better. This is the thing I've been born to do. In my life, I have discovered I've been put on this earth to teach you how to do webinars. It's my life works, and I take it very seriously. That's why we're always adding new bonuses and new trainings constantly without increasing the cost, without making you pay more, without upselling you anything, all right? So, for example, I just added this new bonus because my member said, hey, Jason, how do I make money if I don't have an audience with webinars? I will tell you how to do it. I helped a guy make $6.4 million without ever having to drive a single bit of traffic. Would you like to know how I did it? Here's the answer. It's in this bonus. It is the single greatest effective way I could teach anybody to make money. You say, Jason, if you put me on a challenge, if you said, Jason, you have 7 days to pull a random person off the street who has zero previous business experience, zero assets, zero products, zero anything. Could you in 7 days have that person make $10,000? First of all, the answer is yes, I could. Second of all, then how? I would hand them Genius webinars and I would hand them this bonus and nothing else. And they would be able to make $10,000 at least in the next 7 days. There is nothing I can do that can make somebody a success faster and at a higher level than this bonus and the Genius Webinars training. So you know what? Listen, hey, if you don't have traffic, you don't have traffic. Doesn't matter. The right webinar with this method will make you more money quicker than if you went out and tried to drive the traffic yourself anyway. So there you go. And we've repeated this over and over and over again. It's the easiest thing when it comes to making money because the hardest part is not the traffic. People already have traffic. What people don't have, what they're missing the most of is the webinar, the conversion element. So we just added this bonus recently. Here's another bonus we just added. Some people say, Jason, I do consulting. How do I use webinars to sell consulting? Well, hey, I sold millions of dollars of consulting through webinars. I have a formula for it. The formula is different than the formula I taught you today. It's not a lot different, but it's a little bit different. Would you like for me just to give you that formula and show you the whole training involved in it? Okay. Here you go. I have helped some of the biggest consultants in the world who've joined Genius Webinars, and we specifically built this training for them because we said, hey, listen, we see you're doing this in your business, and this is a great opportunity for us to teach everybody else how to do this as well, and also how to improve it. And now you get this for free. So I just added a new bonus to the members area not too long ago where we did a 4-hour training specifically on how to create evergreen webinars. So people say, Jason, should I do an evergreen webinar? Should I do an automated webinar? Or should I do a live webinar? And the answer is yes. It doesn't matter. Just do one. It doesn't matter which one you do, though. We're going to show you the best way to do it as long as you sign up at genius-webinars.com/Mark. This actually may be one of the greatest business trainings I've ever done. And I'll tell you why, because everybody in that room that I did this training for was a millionaire, at least. Some of these were multi-millionaires. There wasn't a person in that room that wasn't a significantly successful person. And so I really stepped up that day. And boy, that might be the greatest training I've ever done. And it's yours for free. Now, I do plan on selling this one day for $497 on its own. And you can wait and buy it then, or get it for free today and get everything else that I've just showed you so far at genius-webinars.com/Mark. More important than these specific bonuses, I hope this impresses upon you how serious I am to your success. How serious I am and how committed I am to make this the absolute best investment you've ever made. And hey, listen, there are things I can sell you that are shinier objects. There are things I could sell you that look to be simpler and easier, more magically push-buttonable, right? And I could do that for you, or I could sell you what you need and show you the best, most powerful, most effective, long-lasting way to be successful in business. And I've chose the latter. And you're going to be thankful that I did once you get in on genius-webinars.com/Mark. Now, hey, listen, it's not just what have you done for me recently, right? When you sign up today, I'm going to invite you to 2 brand new trainings that we're doing for all Genius Webinar members in the near future. Here's a new one. So we're doing this training coming up very shortly on this pitch that I just wrote. So I was hired by Kevin Harrington. So this was the guy who created the infomercial As Seen on TV brand. And he was also an original Shark Tank member. So Kevin's a friend of mine, and I really like Kevin a lot. So Kevin partnered with a gentleman who acquired the rights to all of Zig Ziglar's material. And Zig Ziglar's a legend. And so they paid me an obscene amount of money and gave me a stake in the company in terms of royalties based on performance to write a webinar to sell this product called Secrets of Closing the Sale. I'm going to do a live training, and only Genius Webinar members can attend. On the 25th of April, I'm doing this training, and I'm going to go into detail on how I got this deal and how I crafted this webinar from idea to finished product. So if you want to craft webinars for people and make money, not only will you learn how to do this in this bonus, but I believe, because this is the most recent webinar I've ever written, because I'm writing webinars all the time. I think that's what makes me very effective. I don't just teach this stuff because I did it once upon a time 15 years ago, right? I'm living and breathing and doing this every single day, and I'm sharing with you all these new secrets, all these new things I've learned, all the most powerful, up-to-date, up-to-the-moment solutions. And essentially, it doesn't matter when you sign up, you're going to get all this. So you should sign up immediately today so you can start benefiting today. Because the only thing that does matter is if you don't sign up fast enough, you won't have the opportunity to sign up. Because this deal does expire. It does go away, because I've learned if I make it available forever, nobody seems to take it serious. But the moment I force you to decide, hey, what do I want to do with my life? And really consider, is this going to help me? You're going to say, okay, I get it. Let's do this. Let's go. And you go to genius-webinars.com/mark to sign up for this right now. I have another bonus coming up at the beginning of May. So on May 11th, I have another live web-based training that only Genius Webinar members are invited to. I'm going to break down 2 additional webinar funnels. One is just specifically for those who want to do evergreen webinars, for those who don't want to show up live, who just want to have the webinar run for them. So they do the webinar once and it makes money essentially forever. Would you like to know that funnel? That's got to be a very specific funnel. It's completely different than the regular funnel. I'm going to walk you through the ins and outs of that funnel, how to use it, how to make it work in your business. And I'm going to literally give you the funnel so you can use it immediately. That NDA webinar funnel, which is the most profitable webinar funnel I've ever built. We just did recently, I think we're going to do $3 million this time with that funnel. Would you like that funnel as well? I'm going to hand that over to you. Not only am I going to give you both funnels so you can drop them straight into your business and use them ASAP, but I'm going to show you exactly how to use them. The training involved with that, all this and more, genius-webinars.com/mark. You can get started right away. When you go to genius-webinars.com/mark, you can take the $14.97 to take care of this all at once, or you can go at it for $3.99 4 installments. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Pick the one that's most comfortable for you. Either way, you get every bonus that's already been creative, every bit of training that's already available, all unlocked immediately to you all at once, plus you get invitations to these 2 trainings, which I'm absolutely on the books for doing here in the near future, plus any other trainings that we're going to make available to Genius Webinar members in the future after that. You're going to get those as well. All right. So I have time for a few questions here. I know Mark said he had to leave a little bit ago, so he's not going to be here to hop on with me right now. But I got 12 minutes left because it's 12:18 my time here, or almost 12:19. I got to be out of here at 12:30. I have a family thing I have to do, which is nice. When you do webinars, you can decide, block things out, and then when you're done, right? So I have a couple questions, and I also have Angela here who's on my team to help send me over these questions, and she's going to do that now. But if you have a question that is important to be answered right here while you have me live, now is the time to ask that. And Angela's already sent me a couple questions here, so I'm going to start answering them. First question she says is, how do I get my webinar? How do I get my webinar before people that will buy? My email list is only 50 people. So I think the question is, how do I get people to my webinar? And that's a good question. Now, that was probably asked before I showed you the webinar integrator bonus. So the short answer is that bonus will automatically show you how to do that in a way that is the easiest way I've ever seen to make money online. You don't have to run Facebook ads. You don't have to drive traffic with joint venture partners. You don't have to do SEO. You don't have to do any of that. But you need the webinar first. That's the trick. Once you have the webinar, there are doors that have been previously locked and bolted shut to you that are now open and just begging you to walk through. And on the other side of those doors are piles and piles of money. So The reality is I don't just teach you how to do webinars. I teach you how to make money from those webinars, regardless of whether you have a product or not, and regardless of whether you have an audience or not. So that's the answer to that. So if you're unsure of those things, if those are the only things holding you back from saying yes today, put those aside because you don't need those anymore. The audience and the product are secondary. The webinar pitch is worth a fortune, and you don't need to have your own product, and you don't need to have your own audience. I show you exactly how to do this regardless of whether you have a product or not, and I show you exactly how to do this whether you have an audience or not, because the webinar itself and the funnel are the most important things, and that's what you get here today, plus all the other training involved in how to put this in front of audiences and how to do this with other people's products, not just with your own. genius-webinars.com/Mark. Okay, so another question. I have a webinar, but I feel it might be too long. How do I know how long I should teach before I start selling? So this is an easy answer. Is the webinar making you the amount of money you would like it to make? If the answer is yes, then your webinar is not too long. If the answer is no, then the answer is it might be too long. A webinar doesn't necessarily have to follow a certain length. Now, I teach you that the content portion should be between 45 and 60 minutes in Genius Webinars. And the higher the ticket of the product you're selling, the longer the content should be. So if you're selling a more expensive product, it should be about 60 minutes. If you're selling a lower end product, the content should be about 45 minutes. But I have broken those rules before. Essentially, we start there and then we say, do we think we can make even more money by going even further along? And we'll try it. Here's the beautiful thing about webinars. Win, lose, or draw, every week you can make an adjustment and see what happens, and you should. And the best way to get ideas for these adjustments is to invest in webinars. Anybody who's already doing a webinar, you should have already bought Genius Webinars by now. Because I guarantee you, whatever webinar you're doing, I will make it way more effective, even if you just randomly open a video and only listen to it for 5 minutes. Because I can give you something within those 5 minutes that you can immediately put in your webinar and make it more effective. So that's done. You've already made more money as a result than what you've invested to get started with Genius Webinars at genius-webinars.com/Mark. But here's the second thing, right? If you've never done a webinar before, this is going to be the key to getting you to actually finish a webinar and know how to make money from it instantly. And again, that's going to be valuable to you far beyond what you're going to invest in today to make that happen. That's what really matters. Okay, so here's another question. I do webinars to a free coaching session. Do you teach that? The answer is yes, I do. So one of the bonuses is the consultant model. That's what I call it, where the whole thing is framed around using a webinar to sell a one-to-one coaching session. And I've seen people do this wrong and still do okay in terms of profit. But when you do it the way I teach you, you get people 10 times more likely to say yes with 1/10 the amount of time and effort. And they'll say yes at much higher prices. That's the secret. And we do have that bonus. If you're already doing this where you sell a webinar that has a free coaching session, Genius Webinars is going to pay for itself 10 times over. I can tell you that I would swear under oath in a court of law to the factuality of that statement because I know it to be true. And you got to see it for yourself. Go to genius-webinars.com/Mark to see it for yourself right now. Okay, here's another question. I have an evergreen webinar going on now. It's converting at only 2 to 3%. How long will it take me to get trained to be able to implement an explosive sales conversion? Thank you. Great question. I assume you've already signed up. Yes, if not, you should sign up now because you're going to really enjoy this answer. The idea here is we can probably double your conversion rate without touching the webinar itself, just by using the funnels that I teach. So I believe you could, in one session, by studying what we do in the funnels, or in one session, listening to that evergreen training that's already in the members area, you can double your webinar without changing anything in the webinar itself. And see, this is what I know about webinars. This is what I know about them. There's a million ways in which we can make more money with a webinar. Once you have a webinar, it's easy to make more money, and Genius Webinars will show you how to do that. And if you don't have a webinar, you say, Jason, what about me? Genius Webinars is going to show you how to create the webinar as fast as humanly possible, right? Yeah, absolutely. genius-webinars.com/Mark. Hurry up and get involved in that because this is a limited time offer. And Mark is not joking when he says things like, it's very rare to get Jason to see this. I kind of do this because I really like Mark and I really like Matt. I consider them both very good people, and I'll tell you why, because they have been clients of mine. They have paid me money, and they talk about me very favorably in public. And so it's very rare that I get to come on unless there's a certain types of audiences I speak for and I teach this to. Usually it's the 7, 8, or even 9-figure companies where a lot of this is where I seem to be finding most of my time with today. Because that's where we financially make the most amount of money for the company, is working with those clients. But when people like Mark and Matt, they say, hey, you want to do this training? Normally the answer is no, but for these two, the answer is yes. And so for you today, by the way, you should be appreciative of them because they're very fine and very wonderful human beings and business people. And so the idea here is we're making this available, genius-webinars.com/Mark, to you here today. The advantage you're going to get from this when you say yes, especially for the deal involved in this, is just remarkable. I have paid 100 times the amount of this money for 1/10 of the value, and I was happy with it when I started investing in webinars when I first started. Because even a little bit, even if I had to pay 10 times as much as you have to invest today, and I only got 1/10, it would still be worth it because of how valuable webinars are. Okay? Can you do this for affiliate offers? Yes. In fact, my most successful webinar ever was for somebody else's product. And we teach that in Genius Webinars. Live webinars or automated webinars? The answer is yes. It doesn't matter. Start with one. I don't care if you want to start automated and then go to live later, or if you want to start with live and then do automated later. Just start somewhere. If the thing is, behind each of these 3 doors is a pile of money, you don't say, well, I'm not going to open any door because I'm not sure which one has the most money behind it, right? That would be foolish, wouldn't it? Instead, you say, I'll just open a door. If there's a big pile of money behind every door, let me just start opening doors. That's the answer. The answer is whether it's a live webinar you want to do first or an automated, doesn't matter. Just open the door and get the money. What you need is the tool that opens the door, which is Genius Webinars, genius-webinars.com/Mark. Will this training help me if I'm not a salesperson? Absolutely. Because whether you know it or not, you are a salesperson. But we don't have to call you that. If you're somebody who can help somebody else and give them a deal in terms of value that far exceeds the price they pay to get it, Genius Webinars is going to help you get everything you want in life by helping enough other people get what they want. That's a Zig Ziglar quote, by the way. It's fresh in my mind because I'm the guy they hire to sell Zig today. And I'm going to teach you how to sell whatever you want to sell to get what you deserve. Okay. Do you think webinars can be used to generate home buyers and home sellers where we're selling a service that it takes longer to fulfill? I'm a realtor. The answer to that is yes. If I knew you were going to be on this call, I would have broke out all my realtor testimonials because I have a lot of them where they're using webinars to sell homes. Essentially, here's the litmus test. Anything we're selling, a webinar can sell it. Whether it's a point of sale, meaning that you don't ever have to talk to anybody and they can decide right there on the fly to say yes, or whether that's something that augments an existing sales cycle. So whatever you're doing, add a webinar into it. Add the webinar at the end of it, and you're going to make more sales. Or add it at the beginning. It doesn't really matter. The answer is it would be very, very hard to not put a webinar into a realtor business and not see a significant amount more money. Now, that's being not strategic at all. That's kind of just like throwing a dart at the wall and saying, we'll put the webinar here. And in that situation, you are going to be much better off as a result. And I can say that because I know the effectiveness of webinars. That's why I've made it my life's work. This is why I am the best guy in the world at it, because I understand and know the value of them more than anybody does. And I also know all the answers. And I've given you all the answers. And you don't have to pay me $1 million like some companies have paid me $1 million to come in and do their webinars for me. You have to invest in yourself and do a little bit of this work yourself. But look at the price tag. What a good deal. Genius-webinars.com/Mark. All right. Unfortunately, I got about 46 seconds left before I have to be outski-wowski here today. So here's the deal. If I didn't answer your question, write into support@rapidcrush.com. That is my support desk. We are very quick to respond to support requests. That is, again, let me tell you again, support@rapidcrush.com. Make sure you mention that you came from this webinar, that you came from Mark's webinar. Otherwise, they won't allow you to invest in this because this is typically closed more often than not to the general public, and they want to make sure you get all the bonuses and everything if at the end of writing in you decide to invest with us, which I recommend, of course, that you do. I can't give you a better deal than what I've given you here today to truly unlock. If you're somebody who wants to be wealthy and wants to help the world at the same time, this is what we got for you. Genius-webinars.com/Mark. I appreciate you, and I want to help you in your path to success. Genius Webinars is how I can help you the most, and I look forward to being of service to you, and we'll talk again soon.